Welcome to Pat's Cast, the unofficial Regina Pats podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Chris.
And this is our episode for May 28th, 2019.
17th overall pick, the Regina Pats are proud to select Coldstream, BC lefty Leighton Feist, North Zone Kings.
I was super excited, especially because Regina was my first pick, and I didn't get to play with my brother.
Hi, I'm Darren DuPont. You're listening to Pat's Cast, the unofficial Regina Pats podcast with Matt and Chris.
Well, sir, it's been a while since we've been on the mics here. A lot's happened. I think the last episode was with Kevin, our season wrap up. A lot's happened since then. Hey.
Yeah, it's been a while. Kind of missed it actually.
Yeah. There was lots to talk about. We'll get through everything, and we'll start off with a great interview with Brayden Sullivan from Draft Geek, and we are doing a draft review with him. He was exceptionally knowledgeable and just a well-spoken, intelligent young man. It was a real pleasure to talk to him. I think it was a really good interview. Got into a few things other than just the draft, but I think it was good content, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We mentioned it during that interview that it was one of our highest rated episodes, so we definitely wanted to have someone from Draft Geek back on. If you don't know what they are, they're a group of guys who go out and watch a lot of bantam hockey, and they really put in a ton of time and a lot of effort, and it shows. Their draft guide. You printed it out.
Yeah, twice.
200 and some pages. Yeah.
The other guy at work wanted it too, so he's like, yeah, I'm gonna print it. I don't care.
Yeah, and all that for $10. I think they're not charging enough. But
you waste $10 on way worse things.
Oh God, yeah, and that's far from a waste. So definitely worth picking one up if you haven't yet, or even looking towards next year. And then we'll talk just some hockey. We haven't talked for a while, so bring up some Memorial Cup topics, even WHL playoffs. We both ended up at spring camp this past weekend, so a few insights from there. And then looking forward, we got some things to talk about in the future. So we'll just dive right into that interview with Brayden. And just thanks for Brayden for doing this. Okay, we want to welcome Brayden Sullivan from Draft Geeks to the episode today. You'll remember last year, spoke to one of his colleagues from Draft Geeks, and it was one of our more popular episodes, actually. So we really wanted to reach out to Brayden and get him on and give us a bit of a lowdown on some of our draft picks this year, considering we had a few more that are a little bit higher up and some guys that maybe have a bit more potential than last year. Brayden, why don't you just give us a little bit of background about who you are and what you do and why you do this?
Yeah, I run a company called Draft Geek. We're a Western Canadian-based scouting services that focuses primarily on the Bantam draft and the WHL. And basically, we're just kind of self-made, self-media run, and travel along Western Canada, have guys set up in all four provinces. And every year we put out newsletters and guides to inform kind of parents, fans, and people around the team, just kind of what's going on with the Bantam draft.
Yeah, we saw your draft guide, and I was probably going to purchase it anyways, and I saw it was $10. I thought, oh my God, how can I not? The amount of work you guys put into that, and the products you put out are just fantastic.
Yeah,
and
very impressive.
Yeah, I think anyone who, I mean, maybe this one's gone by already, but even I was saying to Chris, I'm going to keep this one for quite a while and look back at it in the next, 3-4 years even, and see if you guys identified some of the top guys. And yeah, it's really good work. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I think a lot of people kind of get that whole what rankings are and what the philosophy behind it. I think people get that kind of mixed up a little bit, where they can look at a list and say, okay, well, this guy knocked down, 12 out of 22 first rounders, but then where it really comes into play is in those 3-4 years after, when you can look back and be like, oh, he actually nailed the first 22 and he did stuff like that. It's a wait and see process with those kind of lists, but they're kind of fun to make. But like just the philosophy behind it is kind of something that for us we kind of try to predict and take more skill guys a little bit higher. But it was good this year. I was happy with it, and I was happy with the accuracy that it had at the draft, and kind of excited to see how it looks in a couple of years.
So one of the things, as I've been sitting in the stands the last little while and doing this podcast, I've realized I'm not a great judge of talent and where guys are going. What goes into assessing talent, especially someone, I mean, these kids are young, right? You're looking at them 13, 14. Just give us a little insight into what are you guys looking for? What makes a player stand out? Like you've said, so obviously the guys with the huge numbers and whatnot are going to stand out, but past that.
Yeah, there's just, for me, like I've always kind of grown every year to kind of adjust my philosophy, and there's always kids that you kind of you like more than others, and for me it's just guys. I like a lot of players that can kind of mix it up, guys who carry the play a little bit more. And if you look kind of how my lists are kind of structured, it's more based on players who diversify their attack, who can mix it up and play with a little bit of deception with the puck, and then those two-way guys who drive the play to the neutral zone, play good transitional game, and spend a lot of time getting chased rather than chasing the actual puck around the ice. And for me, those are kind of kids that I enjoy watching, just offensively. And then defensively, you got to be able to play a little bit of a skill game. You got to be able to play steady in your own end and impact the offensive game as well. And you got to have good feet. So for me, I'm kind of a young kid, so I kind of live in like a new aged sort of mindset where I think skill, speed, and smarts are really important. And if you can skate, if you can create offensive chances, if you can play fast, make plays at high speed, that's kind of everything that you should be looking for in a player.
Yeah, definitely. The game's changing to that extreme now, where everybody has to skate or else you're going to be left behind in this game.
Yeah.
So what did you think about the draft? I mean, just looking at the Pats themselves, they picked a little bit off the board, a little bit. I mean, according to your rankings, they were a little bit off. And just speaking of the draft, are you finding the NCAA competitions, is it starting to pull players away a little bit from an outsider looking in? I feel it is. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the whole NCAA thing is a little bit interesting, just because starting next year when they go into the Bantam draft, none of these kids are going to have any commitments beside their name anymore. It's going to be a lot more homework for the scouts and the people around the teams to kind of learn where the player's mindset is. But I think nowadays a lot of kids are realizing that there's different options out there. You don't have to just go to a WHL team, or you don't have to, if you're a second tier kid, you don't have to go to the AJHL. In fact, you can just go to the NCAA. And I think that's kind of opening up for a lot of kids, and a lot of kids are kind of, they see that and they find that as to be an opportunity, which is completely fine. It's up to them. And, at the end of the day, it's a sport, but at the same time, for a lot of people, it's a business. And the more you can, attract players to your team or attract players to your kind of your mindset and your philosophy, the better off you usually are.
What do you think the WHL has to do to bring kids back? Maybe, or compete a bit more with the NCAA?
I don't think they have to do anything. I think most of the kids that are committed to playing in the WHL, and the ones that might go into the draft with talks about going to the NCAA, might just be using that to kind of have that kind of accolade beside their name, so to say, where they can say that they're committed to Denver, or maybe they just want to use it as a bargaining chip with WHL teams. But personally, one of the things I'd like to see is maybe the draft year move up a little bit, even though that seems like something that might never happen. It would just kind of be interesting, just because they could you kind of get a better gauge on players. Players are more mature, and I think a lot of kids commit in that 15-year-old season to the NCAA and have their mind made up before then. So I think that would kind of benefit the accuracy more, and more help teams gauge where the players' interests are. But as of right now, I don't think they need to do anything. I think they're still getting the top talent. And though you're committed one day, you might be committed somewhere else the next.
Mm-hmm. You bring up a point that we scratch our heads about often, comparing to the OHL and the Q, where they draft older players, and we in the dub draft a year ahead. And I don't know if you've heard, the CHL now is looking for a president. I think they're calling him.
Oh yeah, an overall.
Overall, maybe, so we might see some alignment that way. I don't know. But
it sounds like from the commissioner though, he's pretty set on 14 as a draft age.
Yeah, it's a bit hard. Like it'd be great to like see it implemented, and I don't know. I've only been doing this for 3 years, so I don't know where a lot of other people's mindsets are, but it'd be difficult to kind of just kind of almost move back draft picks and do all that. But if you can get it done, and if a lot of people like it, if all the people around the teams want it to happen, then I don't see why I cannot. But
yeah, definitely.
And again, right now we're just kind of a service, and I don't get to make those decisions.
No.
Good. Well, let's get into our picks. You may have known the Pats last year didn't have a whole lot of picks, and going into this year, we didn't look like it, but our GM did some working this year and got us up to a few higher picks. So let's look at our first pick, Leighton Feist, out of the North Zone Kings. You guys had quite a gleaming review of him here. Why don't you just give us, you can refer to that or some of your other thoughts about Leighton?
Oh yeah, well with Feist is just kind of, I don't think we had him pinned as a top guy. The main issue with that is just because he played North Zone Kings, which is an inner BC team, and looking at that league, it's kind of a lower level league, and a lot of those top BC kids end up going to the CSHL. So, kind of gauging where he is amongst his peers, kind of gets put down to last minute at the BC Cup, where he was very good at. But overall, with Feist, you're getting a kid who kind of plays that kind of game that I mentioned before. He's got outstanding feet, great hockey sense. He's a kind of a setup guy on the blue line who can find sticks, find open lanes with the puck, and he also has the footwork on the blue line to create those shooting lanes and drive stuff from different angles. But yeah, he's a very intelligent kid who needs to add a little bit of weight, add a little bit of size. But for him going forward, it's just going to be working on his defensive positioning, defensive physical play, and continuing to kind of develop that offensive package that he brings.
Yeah, I was looking up his stats. He had some stats in the Northern Alberta Bantam League as well, so that's a tier down. So I was kind of wondering that we're taking this guy in the first round.
No, he's a good player, and you know what? He's like a wait and see kind of player. But if you're talking about kids who think the game and can read what's developing going on from the blue line, he was probably top 5, I think, on anybody's list going through that. No matter if you had him in the first round or if you had him in the third. Like I said, just for him, it's just working on his physical game and working on his defensive game. But I think what you're getting with him is a guy who can potentially run the power play at some point in his career and be a guy who puts up a lot of assists. And he might not score a lot of goals, but like a 30-35 assist guy.
How's his shot?
Well, like I said, he's a setup shooter. So shooting for sticks, shooting for lanes, going for tips. From my viewings, I never really saw him shoot high and all that, but it's low, it gets on net, and like he uses his footwork to kind of open up those lanes, so he doesn't have any issues getting the puck through traffic. And there's a lot to like there with in terms of his playmaking and his ability to see the game.
Awesome. Any other questions for
No, I'm good
regarding Leighton? Right. So then our second round pick, Samuel Huck, out of Calgary. 5'7", 130 pounds of forward. Yeah, you want to just comment on Samuel?
Yeah, Samuel, he's a kid who played on that Calgary Bison team this year that had loads of talent. And for us, just like Feist, he kind of played a little bit of a deeper role playing that behind Oasis Weisbach. But the kid thinks the game really well. He's got an excellent motor, shifty on his feet, good puck control. And if you're kind of sitting there after the draft and you're looking at him, you're being like, whoa, this kid went 44. And then you start to think of the kind of game that he played, and there's not really a lot of holes there with him. It's just, like I said, he's just got to get bigger, he's got to get stronger, and he's got to kind of work on playing a little bit more physical. But great energy, great compete, kid who's played a fearless game despite his size, and puts himself in good spots in the offensive zone. Plays pretty sneaky, plays pretty slippery, and there's a lot of things that you like in a smaller skilled player.
Good. It must be tough. I don't know. Do you ever get a chance to look at these guys' parents and siblings? Is that how you judge maybe future status in terms of size and weight?
It gets talked about. Like for me, I know when it comes to WHL teams, they're very high on getting to know the parents and getting to know the family and kind of getting to know what kind of kid he is, where he could be in 2-3 years and all that. So I would have to think that they had that kind of dialogue and that kind of expectations on him. And for me, I never really got to meet the parents too much, but you hear about it all the time with different kids that, oh, the parents are really tall or stuff like that, where it can kind of put more confidence on a kid. But for me, it's just with Huck is just, he's got a lot of great offensive tools. He's got a lot of great, hockey sense and stuff like that. That if that kind of stuff comes along for him, I think he can be an outstanding player.
How was his Alberta Cup?
It was good and kind of similar to his Bison season. He was kind of playing once again behind those other kind of Calgary kids, but it's a lot like, for me, just kind of thinking about Samuel Huck, kind of just the way that I gauged his draft kind of position was similar to kind of Colton Dack last year, where I might have had the kid a little bit lower, but once you start to kind of think about their game, you're like, well, they do a lot of good things right. There's not a lot of holes there, so I could definitely see why a team likes him. You could sit there and you could talk about the weaknesses, and you're like, they're really small things that can get worked on pretty easily, and things that he has to his assets and things he has to his tools are a lot harder to teach than the weaknesses that he could be taught.
Yeah. Does that Alberta Cup, being where it is in the calendar, does that really heighten those Alberta kids' draft stock a bit?
It does and it doesn't. It's the last kind of chance to see a lot of those kids, and for everybody, like Winnipeg kids, Saskatchewan kids, BC kids, it's the last chance to see them. So every team has a ton of scouts there. Every team has all their eyes on the kids, but at the end of the day, it's an entire season's work. It goes from September to May, and you can, if you're going to judge a kid based on one weekend, then you're going to find yourself in a tough position where you're drafting kids based on one or two viewings, and I think at this point, too many scouts have too many teams have too many scouts on the payroll to decide on one weekend where they gauge a player.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next couple players we picked, 2 out of the 3 were U.S. players. So not so much exposure to them on your side.
I got to see Rowan a little bit. He's like a little bit of a skilled player himself, but for me, just kind of focusing more on. For me, I focus a lot more on the Canadian side of it, and I got my American scout focusing on the American side. But both those players spent time in Canada this year, and so I'm guessing Regina had a couple of opportunities to see both those guys play, and Rowan and Whitehead. So for me, I wasn't too focused on them, but they're both kids that they're skilled, and at the tournaments that they were at, I know Whitehead in particular really lit up that KIBHT tournament. So I have to guess that they're pretty confident in the skill set that those two bring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Whitehead is possibly coming to maybe Okanagan next year, so that I think that improves their chances of him coming to the Pats.
Yeah, and it helps their viewings too, kind of gauge his development and stuff.
Yeah,
like that
definitely for sure.
Then our other third-round pick was Matthew Keeper, a goaltender out of Winnipeg. I had a few people at work even come up to me and say, boy, that goaltender looked young. But actually looking at his stats, he's 5'11", 140. He just looked quite young. But good stats for a young goalie in terms of height. It seems to be kind of the way that position's going is for the taller players.
Yeah, for him, I got to see him at the Manitoba POE kit camp, and after kind of watching him, I immediately moved him up a lot. He's a big athletic goalie who has great reflexes, and you could kind of see at that tournament when those bigger, kind of more skilled players like Geeky and Matachuk and Bennett all kind of came down on him. He seemed to hold his ground, and but just from our Manitoba scout talking about him, just a consistent goalie who seemed like every chance he got in the big stage, he was able to perform well, whether it be at the All-Star game, whether it be at the POE, whether it be in bigger games. He's a guy who has a lot of appealing kind of physical tools to him, but he is also very polished in terms of athleticism and reflexes.
Interesting. He kind of fits what we're used to around here with Max Paddock, a tall, lanky goaltender from Manitoba. So that's interesting. The Pats have a bit of a lull, we're finding, with goaltender. We have some decent ones right now, but the guys next up, we're a little uncertain about right now. Who knows? I mean, like I said, I'm not a great judge of talent, but it was interesting to see this goaltender pick. So maybe that what we're feeling isn't untrue, that they think within the next year or two or a couple of years we're going to need that next man up.
Yeah, and it sounds like he had pretty good stats on a not so good team out there. So that's it is what it is. So
could be the replacement.
Yeah,
16-year-old replacement.
Yeah.
Never know with goalies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Goalies are a whole nother, whole other window of.
I couldn't even begin to judge them.
Goalies. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, and then into some of the later rounds here, round 5, Caden Wiltsey, I believe his name was. I didn't see a write-up for him. Is that correct?
Yeah, he is much similar to kind of Huck, where he played behind Weisblatt and Gorley, and those two were really the kind of the duo that put up a lot of points for them. But Wiltsey was a bit more of a grittier player, plays with an edge, tall, lengthy kid who excellent positioning in the offensive zone, seems to always be in the right spots, good around the net. And kind of plays that imposing type of game on players. The one thing I always liked with him was the physical aspect of the game. He seemed to always get under the opposing team's skin and never really crossed the line, played right on the fence. And I think that's the kind of game that Saskatchewan folks like.
Yeah. What was his stat? What's his physical stats? Do you know? Not to put you on the spot, but
I don't know his physical. I know he had a few points there because they had it was him, Huck, Gorley, and Weisblatt were the big four that put up big numbers this year for them. But a lot of those stats were kind of driven off just being in the right spots, being in good position, putting a stick down, and finishing around the net or finishing in good spots in the offensive zone.
Right on. Next up, Carter Cormier, local Notre Dame Hounds player. You had him actually ranked 120. So looking at some of the other picks, kind of maybe a steal in a later round, would you say? Or
he's a great player and a kid who fits a bottom six role better than anyone else. Just excellent motor, good size, finishes checks, plays physical along the wall, and you got like all year long. You really like the energy that he brings. He's also a kid who's got great skill as well and can drive the puck through traffic with tight hands and pretty good footwork as well. But just a kid who plays with an outstanding motor, loves to play physical, kind of a pass first type of player who knows how to find guys with the puck, and kid who's not afraid to go through dirty areas to take pass through dirty areas to get to his destination.
Right on. So he's listed at 5'9", 160. So he's got some heft to him already.
Yeah, I think that those might be a little bit outdated, where I think he's a little bit more at the 5'10", 170 kind of range right now. Yeah. Especially later on in the year at that South First tournament, he was a very assertive player whose size was pretty evident.
Good. I mean, again, these kids are 14. They're just boys, and it's such a unique league too, right? You get 14, 15, 16-year-olds, and then playing against 20. I guess the 14-year-olds aren't playing, but 20-year-old men versus some are just boys coming into the league, and yeah.
Yeah, and the thing with that is, like, you sit there and you watch these kids play on the ice, and they don't really look like kids, but then they come off and they're. I mean, I'm a pretty baby-faced kid, or person, but they look pretty young.
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure on them too, hey? Like that Alberta Cup, Yeah, they must know like what they're playing for. Is there tension in that rink? Is it, or is it still?
It's hard because, like, obviously, I think that a lot of people put a little bit too much stock into certain areas of the game where it's like, well, if you just kind of relax and focus on what you can do and what you can control, I think that you're in a better spot. Like, for me, I've always kind of felt like if you're good enough, they'll find you. It doesn't matter if you're 14 years old, if you're 17 years old, if you can play in the dub, if you can play in the AJHL, if you can play in the BCHL, you're gonna play there regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you can kind of work on your development every day, and you know, don't worry about where you get seen, how you get seen, or what goes on. At the end of the day, it's kind of what you can control, and it's hard at 14 to kind of understand that. I know when I was 14, I couldn't really understand a lot of things, but the whole philosophy on the draft and kind of what you need to do to get to that next level is that if you're not a first round pick, apparently that you're not good enough to play one. And realistically, I think a quarter of the league comes out to be undrafted players. So whether it be late bloomers, whether it be kids that were just more committed, work their way there. At the end of the day, just because you aren't taking the draft, just because you make Alberta Cup isn't the end of the world. There's still lots of time for you to grow into the kind of player you want to be.
That's some good insight. It sounds like you could give some advice to some parents out there.
Well, to be honest with you, like I like to think I do. I have a lot of parents that will talk to me once in a while just for advice and stuff like that, and that's kind of all I can really say. I'm not in their position, so and all that, but I mean, I am an evaluator for kids, but for me, kind of if I can put a kid in a better direction rather than developing them. If any parents ever sit there and send me an email saying, "Oh, what does my kid do right? What does he need to work on?" I don't have any issues with just kind of helping with that, just because at the end of the day, I'd rather have a parent thank me in a couple of years' time saying that I helped a kid get to that level just by being open and being insightful than I guess the $10 I could charge for doing that.
Yeah, for sure. I know a couple kids that are 14, one in Saskatchewan, one in Alberta, so it's like like the one I work with his father, so he's been going to SJ camps here, and then he just says, "Oh, the Pat Canadians just sent out an invite for a 4-on-4 tournament at the end of June." He's like, "When does this end?" Like I don't think he needs to go to this and go to everything. It's it's stressful on kids and parents when it's maybe not as it shouldn't be that stressful, right? But
yeah,
nobody.
Well, it could never end, really.
Right?
Like
yeah, exactly, right.
And it seems to be going that academy route now too, which comes with a price tag. So when does the financial investment end too?
I have a whole different kind of philosophy on that, where I think, you know what, for me, I've seen all the academies. I know kind of what they're about, and I support the academies fully. And for me, there's fits and then there's not fits, and that's kind of what you need to work on. If you get to know the teachers, you get to know the program, and you feel like it's a fit and financially it works for you, then sure, go ahead and do it. But for me, I think a lot of people put that similar pressure to the Alberta Cup, where they have to play in an academy, or they have to do this, or have to do that, kind of a little too high. Where I think if you have an academy that's willing to develop not just a player, but develop a kid, that's more important than anything else at the age of 14.
Absolutely. And we have the one academy here with Notre Dame, and from anything I've seen, that's what they emphasize is character building, and I mean, they have a good hockey program as well, but yeah, that's such an important time in a kid's life.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's a those are kind of the growing years. 14, 15, 16 are kind of the years that shape what kind of person you end up being for the next 5-6 years of your life. So it's just, if kids got to just, for me, you just got to realize what you are and what you want to be, and who you want to be looked at the end of that 5-6 years that you are done kind of growing. And I think if you can find a way to be the kind of kid, be the kind of respected individual, and be someone who you're happy with, I think it's kind of all it's about. Don't really worry about whatever it is, Alberta Cup or BC Cup or SAS First. At the end of the day, if you can strive to a goal and do everything every day to kind of get there, then that's kind of all that matters.
Good. Well said. Yeah, we'll get back to our players here. Next up in round 7, we had Riley Applegate out of Lloydminster. 6 foot, 141 pound defenseman.
Yeah, he was interesting this year just because the viewing on him were very limited. He had 2 injuries actually this year, so I got to see him luckily because I'm an Alberta North person. But the upside on Applegate is high. He's a puck moving defenseman, got a little bit of a lanky frame, skates very well, steady defensively, a very well balanced 2-way defenseman. That if he would have got more viewing this year, I think he would have gone a little bit higher. And if he's more surgeon on his, the proneness of his body, then I think they would have taken him a little bit higher. But a lot of upside there, a lot of potential there. Was a captain for that Lloydminster team that was very successful, and yeah, I thought that was a great value pick for them.
I mean, we're just looking at the rankings here that you put in. How much weight is there in them when you get down to the, because we're looking, some were picked a little bit higher than you guys ranked. Is it? I mean, that must be tough to be ranking these guys especially if you're comparing them from all over and not seeing personally everyone.
Well, I got lucky this year because this was the first year I got to actually travel to all 4 provincial cups, and I got to all the tournaments. So I actually luckily did get to see everyone this year.
Okay.
But then again, like I said before, I have an entire scouting crew, and I can't kind of gauge where I see a kid in one weekend, and it's limited viewing. So
yeah,
just kind of ranking kid, it's a philosophy based thing. It's a preference thing. At the end of the day, just because one person has you low doesn't mean the other person doesn't have you high. So what I kind of strive to kind of do for Draft Geek is just to have a ranking list that is similar to a team's, like a 23rd team almost, where they have a complete scouting crew in place. They have someone who gets around and sees all the kids, and they can put out a list that is similar to what a 23rd team would have. And though there's 22 other lists out there, it's the philosophy behind it is similar.
Yeah, no 2 teams in the whole league are going to have the same list. Like, they all see different things. They all have different opinions on these players. So
exactly. And I went to the draft this year, and I had someone tell me, "Oh, you had the same top 5 as us." And then, it sounds pretty good. It's like, okay, so 5 picks were the same. Mm-hmm. That's it. Mm-hmm. After that, it is completely different.
Yeah.
So I think sure. that's kind of the thing, is that everyone has a different list. Everyone can kind of gauge players differently, and everyone has a different philosophy.
Yeah. So next up, we had Brayden Barnett out of Martinsville on a team with some highly regarded prospects for next year, isn't it? With yeah. So, a pretty interesting team there that he's coming from. So yeah, just give us some comments on Brayden.
Yeah, he's a kid who benefited from playing with those 2 05s, Yeager and Hyde. Kind of similar to Wilsey, where he just puts himself in good spots on the ice. He's got a good range on his body, good reach, good lengthy frame, and thinks the game really well without the puck. Kind of one of those kids that can create his own offensive chances just by being in good spots on the ice and being sneaky and putting his stick down and going to the net. Had a ton of points this year playing on that line, and the skating is pretty good, and slippery, sneaky, crafty, everything you kind of need to be a successful WHLer, a kid who needs to work on small parts of his game, get bigger, get stronger, and work better with the puck a little bit, but an excellent complementary player who, if you put him on the ice with some right guys, I think it was pretty evident this year with that he could produce at a high rate.
So he played on the same line as them?
He played on the same line as them, kind of a third option that just always seemed to be in the right spot.
Yeah.
So he's more of a complementary piece, but with the right players, he can succeed, right?
Exactly, and you kind of saw that this year. You put him with those skilled guys who can find him, who can find his stick, and he's gonna find a lot of success.
He got a little bit of grit to his game. I see he's got lots of penalty minutes.
Well, he's a kid who's willing to go to the net and willing to bully his way there if he needs to.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Okay, the last guy we want to talk about, defenseman out of Penticton, Jacob DeWitt, 6'2", 170.
Yep, just play on that OHA Penticton team. A little bit of a 4-5 role, big, strong, two-way defenseman. Plays a little bit of a stay-at-home game, steady on the back end, uses his defensive partners really well, and capable of making a good first pass. The big thing for him that we really liked about him, I'm not sure if we have it in our rankings or not, but I think we did, but just how steady he is, how well he contains, how he positions his body to the middle and keeps the play to the outside. And I think a lot of players know how to do that, but they don't have the mobility to actually force players in the corners, where DeWitt did a good job, not just keeping guys at the outside, but also transitioning or pivoting to the defensive side and forcing them into corners and containing them that way. Just kind of shows how well he's able to defend the rush. And that's kind of important in the WHL, to be able to contain players like Trey Fix-Wolansky. And for him, just continue to work on that, continue to work on his skating. And he's a kid who does a lot of things right defensively. Not a lot of offense there with him, but you need those kind of players in a depth role.
Awesome. I'm just amazed at your your knowledge of these and your insight. It's awesome to talk to you.
Well, yeah, like for me, like I got to see all, luckily. Like I do feel kind of lucky enough to get to see them, and I don't pay for it either. Like that's kind of where our money goes, and so it's my third year doing it. I've learned a lot from it, and luckily Regina took kids I saw, so that's all I'm happy about.
Cool. Yeah, no, and the record speaks for itself. The numbers that you guys had of picked players out of your list, and even Brendan's success with him moving on to Brandon this season. So like, it's an excellent job you guys do. So
is that a goal
and
of yours?
he's gonna be doing a bigger role. We'll see what happens here. We'll see where it goes and what ends up happening. But right now, Draft Geek is gonna happen for 2020. So that's kind of where the focus is right now for the off season. I know you guys have a camp coming up here.
We do. Yeah, this weekend.
Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't seen the names on that list, but I know for me personally, kid that I was high on last year was that Marcus Taylor.
Yeah, he's there. He'll be there.
I think he could make the team at camp. To be honest with you, I like that kid a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's we haven't had a spring camp lately. Just we had playoff run and Memorial Cup, so they hadn't done it. So this is the first one in a little while, and I think both Chris and I are going to get there. And
yeah, it's just the rookies, like just last year's picks and this year's picks. That's really it. So
yeah, just a development thing.
Yeah.
I
think they got the one older goalie. That's it.
Presenti is coming.
Presenti, yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad.
We had a bit of a debate the last episode we had with Savoy. You had to pick him first, regardless of what he was saying, committing to Denver and whatnot.
I don't think you did. I think Winnipeg or Kootenay or whatever, Winnipeg, for them, I think they're pushing for that. They obviously drafted or made a trade to get his brother, and I think there's a few more pieces that they still need to kind of move towards to attract them to their team, but it's an outstanding player, and I think next year we have a similar case in Connor Bedard. Bedard's a little bit more offensive and a better shooter than I think Savoy is, but Savoy's the complete package, and he plays such a WHL style of game, and I think that he fits into that kind of category of players who could be outstanding WHLers. And though he's committed to Denver right now, he don't know where he could be a week from now, where his mindset could be. He could be committing to the Winnipeg Ice. He could be at Denver. He could be skating with an AJHL team.
Yeah.
You never really know. So I think I would have taken him first, regardless, taking a chance on him. He's an outstanding player. You're not gonna draft another kid like him, regardless. So taking a chance on him was I like the choice, and it made my draft list look better. So I'm okay with it.
What's your opinion on the exceptional status or lack thereof?
I think the Savoy one was interesting. I think if you watched Savoy from the age of 12 to 14, and I mean, personally, I'm out of Edmonton, and so he played for St. Albert. So I was obviously lucky enough to see him at the age of 12, and he was dominant against players that age. And if you got to see the full package, and I don't know when they got to see him or where they got to see him, but it's different. I think people need to understand that there's such a big difference between the OHL and the WHL. From the OHL, I think, was it an hour away from everywhere, maybe a 4-hour drive. Mm-hmm. It's not really a big deal, right? Like sending your kid to Flint is I mean, it's tough, right? But obviously, if you need to see them, they're 4-hour drive. That's from here to Saskatoon for me.
Yes, you think it's more based off ice rather than the on ice?
I think it was more based off ice, and I think you got to understand that. Like as a parent, do you really want to like send your kid 10-hour drive away? Like you don't really know. Yeah. That's kind of hard, right? As a 15-year-old. So that's kind of Hockey Canada doesn't. That's kind of maybe they waiver their decision where you kind of sit there and you're like, well, you don't really know where he's going to commit at that time. And as a parent, you got to understand too that that's a big commitment to send your kid. Well, right now it'd be 2 provinces over. And have to basically book a ticket if anything happened.
But they applied, right? So they chose to possibly get that,
but they might be
status.
As we were saying, Hockey Canada may have some of those things we were talking about, recognizing that these are young kids and sending a 15-year-old possibly to Prince George on his own, hanging out with a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds may not be the best thing for him. As a fan,
well, like even as a parent, like the whole thing was like that I've always heard with Savoy is just that he doesn't know where he's going to commit, what he's going to do. But it's like as a parent, like I know his parents. It's like you're going to really like send a 15-year-old that far away. Like I understand the pickiness behind it, and I understand wanting to have a kid nearby. Like I understand all that stuff, and I don't have any issues with that. For Hockey Canada, maybe that was waiver their decision where they thought more on the kid side and the parent side, where they're like, well, why would we send them all the way over there? But if it was up to me, if he was playing in the OHL where everything's close by, I would have given it to him. But we never know. Next year we could see a similar thing with Bedard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. He's obviously got the talent to be granted to him, but we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll see where his commitment kind of lie and which teams might be picking him. Never really know. But that kid's going to be very good.
Awesome. Anything else you want to say, Chris?
No, I think that's about it.
Good. Well, I think we've taken enough of your time here, Brayden. And again, thank you so much for the insight. And we look forward to seeing these guys develop. And Chris and I both get a chance to see a good number of them this weekend already. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's good. I'm happy to be on, and you guys can even send me a DM and let me know what you think of the kids when you get to see them.
Awesome.
Yeah, just shout out your Twitter handles there for the
plug your stuff for everyone.
Just at Draft Geek Hockey for Draft Geek. Right now we're just kind of doing WHL stuff on the off season that keeps me busy, and personal handle is at Sully Draft Geek, and yeah, you can find whatever you need to there.
Right on. We'll keep up the good work, and hope to talk to you guys next year.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
Right on. Thanks. Okay, again, that was Brayden Sullivan from Draft Geek. Really enjoyed that interview, Brayden. Thanks for doing that. Anything you want to talk about the draft? We pretty much covered everything in that, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I have any other thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, as we were alluding to in that interview, we did get to spring camp this past weekend. It was 2 on-ice sessions, just an hour, just skills and drills. Wasn't any scrimmages or anything like that. I mean, again, we're just kind of 2 guys in the stands. We're not expert talent scouts or anything like that, but
no, but you can see who some players stand out.
Yeah, for you, who stood out?
There's a couple guys. The second day, I really liked Easton Armstrong. Hit a couple nice goals.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was hard to track who was who. They're both, the kind of the one-on-ones. It was like, oh, which guy just scored that goal? And
yeah, they were running simultaneous drills at the same time, right? So you'd watch one and there's a guy maybe you're wanting to see, and then I don't know, his drill might peter out, and then it sounded like you might miss something cool on the other side.
Yeah.
Damn it!
Sometimes you didn't know who the D-man was, or who the forward that's actually scored. But Huck stood out. He had a couple nice goals as well.
Huck has a scoring touch.
Yeah, he's
for
got some skill, definitely.
Yeah, he's how old? He's 14, 15 years
14.
old.
Wow.
Right.
14
So
hockey.
when you look at these guys, they look small, and they still are. They still have lots of growing to do. But if he can fill out a little bit, he's got that little touch, that scoring touch. It looked like.
Yeah, and he put up a lot of points this year in Calgary, so he's got confidence.
Yeah. Feist stood out. He looked good. I don't know, from a first round draft pick, you would hope hope he'd look good. The good news is today we signed him.
Yeah, that's definite. That's a definitely good thing.
That's excellent. Yeah, because as this weekend's a bit of it's not just a spring camp; it's a bit of a recruiting weekend
definitely
too, right? So it's
they get to show the players, the organization, the facilities, meet all the people in the team. So
so
definitely
obviously
show
worked
off.
on him. So that's good. That's
Yeah,
something we do need to get is signing some of these guys.
Yeah, I don't think it was too hard to sign him with, he said his number one pick was Regina, or top choice was Regina. And obviously with his brother being here, it's kind of a no-brainer that he signed, and he said he was pretty interested in here.
Yeah, I thought DeWitt stood out a little bit, whether it's just from his size or whatnot, but what's he listed at, 6'2" there?
Yeah, 6'2.5", 175.
Yeah, so
he's got some height and some weight
physically,
on him.
Yeah.
And, his skating wasn't terrible for being a big guy.
Yeah.
You could see he stood out as one of the younger D-man, but you could see there was a definite skill difference between the 04s and the 03s. The 03s definitely had a step on the 04s.
The drill we noticed that on was one-on-ones where they had to go down the boards.
Wing.
Yeah, the wing. And I don't want to talk bad. I mean, they're just kids. There was a few kids who just couldn't keep up with their backward skating, the defensemen, and they would just get skated by. But yeah, I mean, those were the younger kids, so they still got a year to get better. And if they recognize that, hey, they can put in the work, and I'm sure
got a couple of years
get there, right? Then when you could just tell the 03 and the 04, an 04 would go and he might get kind of skated around, and an 03 they just look. I noticed Parker Berg. I remember we saw him at rookie camp last year, and he didn't really stand out, but he looked. I thought he just had his body positioning looked really good on that drill in particular, as I noticing. That's not to say other people didn't, but just noticed some nice things from him. And the goaltenders, I mean, it's tough to. They were just getting. I mean, the drills just have them hanging out to dry too, right?
There's like the one where it was on Sunday. There was 4 guys. I don't know. It was kind of. I didn't really understand the drill. It was like 2-on-2, and then it was. But you could use the D man, so it was like 4-on-2, and then I didn't know who was actually forward or defense. Like it's if you had the puck, it's almost like you were the offensive team.
Poor goalies, they were just getting
the one time
shelled.
Keeper, he made like 3 saves in a row. It was like a pad, the other pad, and then a glove save. And I was like, whoa, that was beautiful.
That's what I was gonna get to. His keeper was he looked fairly good actually, for as good as you can in these drills where you're just getting absolutely hammered. Like I thought he seemed to look comfortable out there. I mean, these are his peers, right? So he should, but.
And I know Rob Montaigne had him by himself at the one end at one point, and I kind of wanted to watch it because he was just doing some shots on him, but you know, all the other action was going on at the other end, and I was like, oh, I can't watch both ends, and so he didn't look bad, you know what I mean? Like, sure, he lets in all these goals, but it's a little unfair to the goalies.
Yeah. I would have liked to seen a scrimmage. I guess they didn't have the players necessarily to do that, and
I don't know if they were just wanted to see their guys. Like the only list guy was Logan Hauer.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else was drafted. So, like I know Brandon, they had a full out scrimmages and stuff. So they had much more amount of players.
Yeah.
But this is what they want to do. They just want to focus on these certain guys. They don't want to be looking at a whole ton of guys, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, just from what we could see, some nicer goals. I saw some from Armstrong. Grenier had some nice releases. Yeah, and Huck again.
Stanek looked all right, too.
Yeah. Any overall impression or anything you want to talk about with that?
Yeah, not really. It was just, get a look at these kids, see what they
nice,
have to offer.
It was nice kind of to get back
in the rink, yeah.
Right? Like I've been watching a lot of hockey, just not our guys, and
sitting on the couch watching hockey.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
No, not at all. It's refreshing to get back and see the organization. So so some decisions to be made there. Another deadline coming up here is June 25th is the import draft. Still some questions around that, where they're going to go with who we have. It kind of seems to be the feeling that it's Sedov might be sticking around and Alkimov may not.
Or one of them may not be. Yeah. It sounds like they are interested in a forward that plays in North America already, but who knows what actually happens on the day.
Yeah, you might have to get us a little bit of an inside edge there with your newfounded access.
Yeah, so it hasn't been fully official yet, but I'm going to be reporting for Dub Network, so I have full media access now to the team. So I was able to get some interviews after spring camp, talk to some of these guys.
And that's awesome. That's super exciting for you. It's only going to benefit the podcast as well, to have Chris down there getting some interviews, and just brings us, I think, a little bit to that next level of not just being, I'm still the guy in the stands. Chris is going to have a little bit more access, which is awesome. And I was telling you, he's a little nervous, a little unsure, but I said it's a lot easier and a lot probably more genuine to be a fan, learning how to be a reporter and learning that skill, and instead of being a reporter trying to pretend to be interested in the Pats. So I think Dub Network will appreciate what you can bring, and hopefully, I think we'll translate it over to the podcast quite well too.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely going to help the podcast. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, on Saturday I got to interview John Paddock as well, so it was kind of last minute. I wasn't really prepared for it, but you know, we talked to him and we just talked about the banner draft and what they wanted to do, and they're just looking for some skill. Like they're looking at skill. You can't project other things, but speed, skill. That's their mantra. That's what they've been doing for the last 5 years, right? So,
and I like what he had to say, and actually it resonated a bit with what Brayden had said. Is just they look for good skating. I think that's a skill these guys are expected to have at this point, and maybe it's too late to start working on that. If you're, if you really need a lot of work on your skating, it might be difficult, and that's what he said. I think from there they can work with a kid and develop those other skills, that the skills, but you need that basic skating. So that'll be awesome for us, and I guess in turn all our listeners that we have.
Yeah, like I talked to Feist and Stanek after Saturday. Stanek was bummed about the trade at first, he said, but then he was pretty happy with it. Closer to home, he said his family can come watch him play more often now and stuff. So he seemed pretty happy. And Feist was, like I said, he was super happy to be drafted by the Pats, his first choice. And then obviously he signed already today. So, that's not surprising. Like, it's pretty obvious that he was going to sign, I think, no matter what.
Yeah.
So, and then, talk to Paddock, and then, so I'll have some access coming up this year. And Dub Network has been looking for somebody in Regina, and they've still been looking. And I said, okay, well, I'll talk to them and see what they want, and so I'll give it a go. Yeah, so
it'll be fun.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's going to help us too. So,
like you said, you're already
we're
almost doing it.
Yeah, I'm already watching the games, doing that. We're talking about the game, so I just got to put it down in print and put it out on the website and stuff like that. So,
yeah, that's gonna be awesome. And then, so yeah, we'll with the podcast, we'll probably depend on when the schedule is released. I saw Q is already released today, which seems really early, but I forget when the dub was released last year.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I remember we talked about it, but if it's around that import draft, we'll probably try and combine those two. If they're not, depending on what happens with import draft, it may or may not be big, or there might not be a lot of information if we do pick up a player, so it might not be too much to talk about unless you can find something. But yeah, otherwise, yeah. Want any Memorial Cup talk?
Yeah, we might as well talk about that. Even the playoffs.
Yeah, playoffs kind of went, I guess we were disappointed with Lethbridge's showing. I think most of us were on the Kane train with our boys there, but yeah, they just didn't have it. And yeah, the PA series into Saskatoon, that was a good one for the province and hockey in general here. That was good to see. But
yeah, I don't think it really surprised the way it played out. I don't think it really, there wasn't any upsets.
A couple series,
yeah,
maybe
like
here and there, but nothing crazy.
The Spokane over Everett was a little surprising, maybe, but I mean, they finally got all their guys going and they were rolling.
Yeah, they had a great
I'm
team,
a little
so.
surprised they won 4-1. Like they were up 3-0.
Yeah,
that was a little surprising, maybe. But I mean, Vancouver rolling through the BC division, that was a no-brainer.
Yeah, we had both selected Vancouver, PA in the final.
Yeah, I had Lethbridge. So.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I had Lethbridge over PA.
Oh,
so.
Okay. I had picked Vancouver to win, maybe because I just don't like PA that much. I didn't want to see them to win, but you know what? When and when we talked to the Herdcast, I wasn't sure if I was going to root for them, but when they got on the ice that first game, I was pulling for them. I think I'm tired of hearing this narrative of the WHL. Not
after the loss, I was tired of the narrative, the story, or whatever you want to call it.
But it is true.
Yeah,
just tired of hearing it, and it's just I don't know now. You mean people from the dub, and us, and other people are starting to make excuses and this and that, and
yeah,
you know, and you hear like Scruffy on Twitter saying, "Oh, we dropped our schedule and we still have the shortest break." It's because they went to 7 games. Like,
yeah,
if the other leagues would have been playing 7, they would have played till that.
Yeah.
We played on the
Monday.
Tuesday or Monday.
Yeah, Monday night. Yeah,
so they would have played that late too. Guelph played on the Saturday. Like it was only a matter of a few days. So that's
But them getting the first game was tough. But it is what it is. You got to deal with it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the argument of rest versus rest. Like, so they didn't seem too battered going into it either.
No,
right?
not officially, right? They didn't.
Yeah. Other than the Vancouver series wasn't a rough one.
No, it did go 7, but I mean,
it went 7, but
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
they did.
Guelph played.
They did not look good.
No, they didn't. They looked that first game especially was just
even against Guelph, but they looked not good against Guelph.
I didn't see anything that looked good. Like the whole tournament, they did not look.
No,
They did
like
not.
Scott didn't even look good.
No, he let in some weak ones, and
yeah.
And then I feel bad for the Herdcast boys. Oh, to lose the league final
a week ago,
or
whatever, 2 weeks before that,
and then to lose to the same team on your
at
ice
home again,
yeah, against the same team. Oh, frick! Like we lost. I know we lost the final at home, and we lost the Memorial Cup at home, but we had a year in between to kind of digest it. I don't know what's better, to get it all over with.
Yeah, or 2 years of heartache.
Yeah. God, I felt bad for them.
But Rouen was clearly the best team there.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
They threw up a stat. They were plus 101 goals in the third period. And, like even when they played Guelph in the semifinal, like, okay, the team that's up usually sits back and you give up a whole bunch of shots and all this and that. Like, what Halifax did against Rouen in the round robin, where they gave up that late goal, but it didn't cost them.
Yeah,
it was totally the opposite. Guelph was down and they couldn't get the puck.
Yeah,
they couldn't generate any zone time. Same thing with Halifax in the final. Rouen was just
their defensive game.
It's not even their defensive game. It was like they could control the play in the offensive zone. Like they had more shots in the third period, even though they were up 2 goals.
Yeah.
Like it was unreal. Like they just had the stamina, the whole team. Like they played such a 4-line game, and they were impressive. There's a reason why they won 25 games in a row, won 59 games, I think it was.
I did think Halifax would have it after they were up 2-0.
Yeah.
In the first, wasn't it?
1-0 after the first, and
Okay.
they got scored an earlier one in the second.
I thought after that they would have the skill and the team just
To hold on to that.
grind, and they just,
And Rouen dominated the last 30 minutes of the game.
yeah.
Like they were lucky. Halifax was lucky to get out of the second tied 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just went downhill from there.
Yeah. It looked like fun though.
Yeah,
It
it
looked like
looked
those
like a
guys
good
had a
time.
fun
Yeah.
time. I think it'd still be worth going back and listening to some of the interviews that they did. They did a good job. They put out daily recaps. They
They had interviews. Steve hooked them up with some good interviews.
collaborated with the OHL fanboys.
They had some impromptu interviews on the street.
Yeah.
So it was good. Yeah, it looked like a really good time there.
Yeah, I guess we have to wait another 20 years?
Yeah. Well, it was 01, right? So
Yeah, I know, and enjoy it with my son next time.
your adult son.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, that's a good, nice being back, and we've been rambling here for long enough, and we'll wrap it up. Again, we'll talk to you probably around that June 25th import draft day. And again, having a little bit of an insider this year, so hopefully bring you a lot more information and a bit of a different perspective, which is exciting for all of us. So we'll talk to you later, and I guess not see you at the rink.
See you at the ballpark, baby.
Yeah, that's right. Go support the Red Sox, everyone.
Yeah, opening night Wednesday. I guess depends when you're listening. I'll be there, so excited for that.
Right on. Good night,
Have a good
everyone.
one.